And we're live. Welcome to the Human Facebook Live Q&A. Excited to have our first official live stream here, and all in honor of the launch of Human Ketone, the world's first ketone ester drink, a clinically validated superfuel for human performance. I'm Geoffrey Woo, the CEO of Human, and I have with me our research lead, Dr. Brianna Stubbs.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me. Thanks all for tuning in.
Yes, it's a culmination of a lot of work. We also have in our studio Zil. He's our content producer, social lead as well. So he'll be behind the scenes making sure this goes smoothly. So all credit to Zil for recording this live stream Q&A. You should introduce yourself. I mean, you have a very interesting background.
Yeah, so I first ever tried ketone ester as a research participant in the study. At the time I was rowing for Oxford University, that's where I come from. You can tell from the accent, I'm not from these parts. Rowing for the university, rowing for Great Britain, tried the ketone ester, was pretty impressed, thought it was fantastic. And I was studying medicine at the time, decided to sort of shift course to moving into research, and so I've spent the last 5-6 years doing my PhD with Professor Kieran Clark, who is one of the inventors of the ketone ester. So I've been spending a lot of time thinking about ketones the last 4 or 5 years alongside my rowing as well.
Yeah, and Brianna's humble, so I'm going to just drop her credentials here. So she's not only a ketone expert, she holds a PhD in metabolic physiology, doing a lot of the early human studies and kinetic studies on the ketone ester itself. So really, I would claim one of the foremost experts in the field of ketosis and exogenous ketones, period. In the meantime, while she was doing her PhD, also rowed for Great Britain, is a 2-time world champion rower. So
that was my hobby in my free time.
An elite researcher and an elite athlete in and of herself. So we'll be happy to answer all the sports performance questions that you guys might have. So before telling the whole story here, let's actually see Human Ketone at work. I think that's the most interesting demo. You might have seen from the product landing page at human.com/ketone a video of myself seeing this technology in action. So what I'm going to have Bree do is take her blood glucose, blood ketone baseline levels. Let you dry it off, and we're going to be extracting a bit of blood through finger prick. And I know Bree, through her PhD, has stabbed hundreds of people through human trials to get this going. You need me to help you, or you?
No, I'm good. I go.
Okay. So we're gonna get her blood glucose, blood ketone levels now as a baseline, and then we'll have a drink of human ketone. We, as in Brianna, will, and then in 30-45 minutes we'll check in and see how her metabolism is manipulated live. Okay, so ketone readings 0.6 millimole.
What? I worked out this morning.
So I know that you eat fairly low carb, and you're working up.
My glucose is 88.
Glucose 88 milligrams per deciliter, so fairly metabolically healthy. Go ahead and have a drink. Cheers. Excellent.
Feeling good.
All right. So as a reminder, let's get these notes down. It's around, what time is it? A little bit past 12:30. 12:36 p.m. Pacific. We have Brianna at 0.6 millimolar ketone, 88 milligrams per deciliter glucose. So we'll check back in at around 105, 106, 110 to check in how her metabolism is shifting. Cool.
Do you want to talk about Kieran Clark?
Yes, so I wanted to, before getting into the Q&A part of the question, let's actually just do a brief historical survey of how this even came into existence. As you probably have realized, this is a pretty phenomenal paradigm shift in terms of human physiology. So what is the history of this technology? Well, our research partners over at University of Oxford, NIH, led by Professor Kieran Clark, Brianna's PI, as well as Dr. Richard Veach from NIH, have been probably the key seminal researchers in the field of ketone metabolism for the last 20-30 years. They produced the results showing that ketones were 20% more efficient than glucose using the same amount of oxygen. So really defining ketones as a more efficient fuel than any other fuel substrate out there. And that, in my opinion, has really cascaded a number of the interesting performance applications of ketogenic diets, fasting, for all types of different athletic endeavors. So with this in sort of percolating in academia for the last 20, 30 years, as it takes time for academia to disseminate out, US military, DARPA, got a wind of it in early 2003, 2004 during the Iraq War, Operation Iraqi Freedom, and had issued an RFP, a request to develop a super fuel to enhance warfighter performance, especially in cognitively and physically demanding missions. So, of course, as the premier ketone experts in the world, Clark and Veach decided to propose developing a fuel based on ketones. And long story short, our partners won a $10 million DARPA grant to initiate the first synthesis of different ketone compounds and do the animal and human safety studies and kinetic studies, and then eventually performance and effectiveness studies. So over the last decade, we've gone through the full process of going through selecting the premier ketone ester compound that we have in human ketone. We've gone through numerous human as well as animal safety studies, and that was what got us the FDA grasped that as a food, which is a big regulatory hurdle in terms of introducing a novel compound into the food supply, and also doing the work in terms of making sure it's WADA compliant for use in top tier athletics. So, well, you might have questions about, who has been using it during competition and who has been using it in sport. We unfortunately, cannot, name our different athletic partners and organizational partners, but you can take our word on background that some of the most elite performers in the world have used this in the competition, have done really well on it. So a long history of research, and a long history of funding. I mean, over $60 million in academic funding has gone through this, and over the last year and a half, the Human Enhancing Company that we're a part of here have turned the food ingredient, the technology, into a foodstuff, into a food that can be sold widely around the world. So a huge accomplishment, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, in physiology, in chemical engineering, and in human performance to really take this military research into a food. So that's a quick background. Now, should we get into some...
I think it'd be interesting to just give people a little bit of an overview about ketosis, ketone bodies,
yes.
and why are we even interested in this?
Yes, please. I'll let the doc here take it away.
Yeah, I'll just give you a little bit of background. So, the body has 3 natural ketone bodies. They're called beta-hydroxybutyrate, that's the one that we measured in my blood a second ago, acetoacetate, and acetone, which is the one that you can smell on people's breaths, like as a pear drop kind of smell. Now, the reason that the body has evolved ketone metabolism is to look after the brain, because the brain, normally it's really, really reliant on sugar for energy. You all know the feeling, like mid-afternoon, a little bit of a slump, if you have a little sugary snack, picks you back up again.
Right.
That's kind of how Western culture works, right? We're kind of surrounded by things to kind of keep us going, pepping us up. Lots of soda, lots of cakes, lots of muffins. It's all good fuel for our brain. However, back in prehistoric times, when we weren't surrounded by cakes and muffins, it would be a little bit of a bad thing for our species if we couldn't keep our brain going in periods of carbohydrate lack. So, we've actually got very little stored carbohydrate in our body, only a couple of thousand calories stored as glycogen in our muscles and in our livers, and so that runs out pretty quickly. However, we have quite a lot more stored as fat, but the brain can't get hold of that fat, can't get very easily from the blood into the brain. So we've got to find a way to turn the fat into fuel.
Especially from a nootropics perspective, as you studied, very few compounds can cross the blood-brain barrier.
No, totally, you're right. That's kind of a very interesting point to raise there. So ketone's evolutionary function is to provide a way of making fat accessible for the brain. So that's sort of like the background there. Super efficient fuel source, very good for the brain, but also when you have it in your body, all of the other tissues of your body, apart from your liver, can use ketones as fuel as well. So normally when we are in a state of ketosis, that's because our body is producing ketones from fat. And so we're going to call that endogenous ketosis. And we're going to take the term ketosis, just meaning that you have measurable levels of ketones in your blood, because now thanks to the design of ketone supplements, it's possible to have elevated ketone levels without having produced them yourselves.
Yes.
So you are in ketosis, but you have not produced the ketones.
Yep.
You're in ketosis, but you're not ketogenic. And there may be some overlap there, but it's two very distinct states broadly.
No, I think that's an important point to clarify, because in our launch week so far, I mean, we've been covered by some of the premier publications in the world, and we've been answering a lot of those questions already just on those platforms. And one of the biggest misconceptions and questions is, how is this different from, as you mentioned, endogenous ketosis, our body's converting our own fat source into ketones, versus what we're claiming that we're doing here, which is exogenously fueling ketones directly into our body.
Yeah.
And they're very different physiological phenomenon.
Yeah.
They should not be conflated, but there's interesting potential overlaps because
but there's also
of the signaling factor of the ketones themselves.
Yes, but I mean, with human ketone, what we're aiming to do is provide athletes with a super fuel. Following the ketogenic diet can be very difficult.
Yeah.
Some people find it easier than others, but generally most people find it quite difficult to really trigger ketone production to any high level by following a diet. Another way you can do it is fasting, but neither of these things are really conducive to doing elite athlete training. Like myself, I would not have been able to follow a ketogenic diet while I was training with the British rowing team. There was too much intensity and I didn't have control of my training program. It would have been too difficult to do.
Yep.
And so what we're offering here is a way for athletes to have an extra super efficient fuel source as ketones without having to deplete their carbohydrate stores or glycogen stores or change their diet. This is something that athletes can take as a fuel source to help them with their training and their competition that doesn't require them to change their diets strategically.
Yep.
It's a new nutritional tool for athletes to use.
Yep.
This isn't like a magic panacea, like gets you into, fat burning, things like that. It's, a fuel for athletes, broadly speaking.
I think the way I like to frame it is that it's just a novel physiological state that doesn't occur in nature. In nature, the hierarchy is you use it for your carbohydrate stores, you go into fat burning mode, and as you start fat burning, you produce ketones. That's a very long natural process. What we're saying here is that we directly consume ketones now. So you have ketones and carbs being burned in a mixed way. So you have just additional fuel bar in your body, and that's how we're seeing increased athletic performance.
I mean, we think that the increased athletic performance is coming not only from the ketones being, as you mentioned earlier, efficient fuel source in terms of oxygen and ATP production, but also having ketones in the body means that your body doesn't need to burn as much carbohydrate.
Yeah.
So in the athletes working out using ketones, they have lower levels of lactic acid and they use less muscle glycogen. And these are two things that show that ketones are being burned. Not obviously some carbohydrates are still being burned, but ketones are slowing down carbohydrate burning and meaning that those stores are still there for later on in exercise when the going gets really tough. And like from my own personal experience taking it and talking to the other athletes that we worked with and athletes that we've worked with on the launch, a common theme seems to be that people get to their red line and then towards the end of the test they just have this extra kind of gear because they've spared their glycogen, their less lactic acid, so kind of gives you a bit more for later on in an intense workout.
And I think just to summarize our little introduction here and wrap it up before I get into your questions, this is a super active area of research, so a ton of interesting research continuing to be done at University of Oxford as well as NIH and also in independent research groups around the world. So we think, we're excited to introduce our first ketone ester product, human ketone designed for sport performance. But the use cases and applications we're excited about span across all of the spectrum of human performance and health. So stay tuned as we continue to do R&D in this space. And perhaps some of the questions in terms that you guys might have could be related to some of the ideas that we have in terms of future applications. So we're here to answer all of those questions. And we already have some awesome questions coming in now, and the format that we'll be taking it is I'll read the question, and we'll just have a discussion. I think we all have our own slightly nuanced personal opinions on some of the emerging science, so I think it'll be a fun discussion here. Let's take the question from Nick Anderson. he asks, how frequently can you take this, and what dietary implications does taking this have? Is it safe to take on a ketogenic diet, or do you have to take carbs with it?
Okay, so I mean, first off, for athletes, we're recommending taking it alongside your normal pre-workout carbohydrates. So in the research studies, we tested ketones by themselves and then also carbohydrates by themselves, and then we tested the two together, and we saw the biggest gains to performance when taking the two together. Mm-hmm. That said, if you're on a ketogenic diet and working out and you don't want to affect your ketogenic protocol by taking in carbs, this will give you a really great source of energy for your workouts or keep going through your day that doesn't kick you out of ketosis naturally. So I mean, that kind of brings us on to the second part of the question, which is, can you take it with a ketogenic diet? And the answer is yes. There is no big insulin spike involved with taking it.
Yeah, I mean, I call it the nutrition label on human ketone is really interesting. 0 grams fat, 0 grams protein, 0 grams carbs. You keto people are interested in, not even that, they just straight up 0 grams carbs and 25 grams of D-beta-hydroxybutyrate ester.
But it is interesting that it does have caloric value, so you have to, if you're trying
120 calories.
Yeah, 120 calories. So if you're trying to maintain a calorie deficit for weight loss, you have to account for the additional calories coming in from ketones, which is kind of exciting. We think, you know, in the future, more people will be getting calories in their diet from ketones.
Yeah. And then to answer one of the portions here, I don't know where it went, but I remember seeing how often can I take it or how do I take it? So we asked for we put a label saying do not take over 3 drinks in a 24-hour period. And that's because you're taking in energy, and too much of a good thing can be, you know, not safe for anything, right? Too much water, too much caffeine, we all know that. You can have too much of a good thing. So we ask, and we put on the label no more than 3 drinks a day. And in terms of use cases for athletic performance, we would recommend, if you're using it as an athlete, 1 before an intense exercise or competition or workout with your standard pre-workout protocol. And then if you're especially keen on a post-workout recovery protocol, you can also use it in conjunction with your standard post-workout carbohydrate, protein shakes, etc. And quickly highlighting the rationale there is that ketones with carbohydrate and ketones with carbohydrate and protein have been shown to increase glycogen resynthesis as well as muscle protein resynthesis. Essentially, you're building up your muscle and glycogen reserves quicker. That seems pretty well covered. And this is an easy question. Ramon Martinez asks, is it FDA approved? Do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I mean, like, the short answer is yes. It's approved as a food. It's generally recognised as safe.
Right.
And it's very important and great that we can say it's a food. It's not a supplement. It's not a drug.
Right.
It's a food stuff.
Correct.
Something. It's utilising a normal pathway of metabolism. Our body metabolizes sugar through a pathway called glycolysis. Our body metabolizes ketone through a pathway called ketolysis. So it's just using a process that our cells and our body is used to.
So typically, I know that approved by FDA typically refers to drugs. So I just want to underline and be very clear here. This is not a drug. You know, the language, the word choice I would use is this is FDA generally regarded as safe. It is considered a food. And it has a nutrition label. Again, not a supplement, not a drug. And actually, for folks that care about the use case for sport, this is NSF approved for sport. We independently batch tested for each lot that we produce, and it's water compliant. So, and I think just again to underline the safety and kinetic profile, you know, numerous human studies have been done to show. Safety in human consumption.
Yeah,
so
specifically around athletes, I've given it to over 200 athletes and people at rest, myself kind of want.
Yeah, and I think I've given it probably to like 100 people and measured, the same as with yourself. So I think just subjectively, this is not, not from a science perspective, but I think it's in our joint experience here, we've seen this used quite safely as a source of nutrition for hundreds of people. And this is all peer-reviewed and submitted to the FDA for the GRAS process. So you can actually look it up online on FDA.gov if you're actually curious to dive deeper into the literature there. Great.
Stan Ho asks, can the ester cause ketoacidosis if mixing with glucose with insulin resistance?
Great. Yeah. So I don't know if the mic picked that up, but I'll repeat that. Stan Ho asks, when you have glucose and you have insulin and you have human ketone, can this product get you into ketoacidosis? You want to take this?
I think the first thing I'll say is that when you take exogenous ketones, they inhibit lipolysis. So that means lipolysis is the process that provides fatty acids.
Okay. The short answer, no.
Yeah.
And then let's go into science.
Okay.
So no, like human ketone with glucose, I mean that's essentially what we're asking athletes to do, is not get into ketoacidosis. I think just from a top line, before diving too deep into the science here, ketoacidosis is typically 20 to 25 millimole ketones, right? And this gives you a sense of the scope here, and we'll see with Brianna's ketone readings very shortly with the drink. We expect to bring people to 3 to 5 millimole ketones. So this is very, very far away from ketoacidosis. But yes, you want to explain that?
Jeff always has a much better take on taking the higher level than me. I dive straight for the deep stuff. So when you take in exogenous ketones from a drink like human ketone, the ketones that end up in your blood actually slow down the release of things that the body actually turns into ketones itself. So ketoacidosis happens when that process is completely derailed. You end up with very high fatty acid levels.
So essentially you only really see this in type 1 diabetics.
But I think a key point is that he mentioned if you're insulin resistant, right? So if your normal person has insulin in their blood, insulin slows down the release of fatty acids. But with ketosis and human ketone, the ketones do that adequately, right? So there's no way you're going to get
pathway.
Yeah, there's no way you're going to get spiraling, increasing levels of endogenous ketone production, because the exogenous ketones themselves, independently of insulin, are going to slow down.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of education needed in this space. So I think it is a great question, Stan, and I think there is some, perhaps just I guess speculation from people that aren't experts in the space around. I think some well-known podcasters speculate. This is not natural. Is there too much energy in the mitochondria now? You have too much glucose and too much ketones. Is crazy stuff going to happen? And the answer is no. I think the body is well adapted to using a multiple blend of energy sources at all times. Right now, at very low intensity, we're completely burning fat with a little bit of glucose and other substrates that are in our body. Except for Brianna, ostensibly burning some ketones as well. So the body is very adaptive in shifting the hierarchy of fuels available. So there's no there's no such thing as you have too much energy in the mitochondria, that's bad for you.
Well, I think
you want to sort of debunk the misunderstanding or misconception there.
I'm perfectly ready to be proved wrong in the future, but my understanding at the moment is that giving ketones provides acetyl-CoA. Ketones are broken down into a molecule called acetyl-CoA inside the mitochondria. And when you start to increase the concentrations of acetyl-CoA inside the mitochondria, that acts as a signal to slow down carb uses. And in much the same way, normally fat metabolism slows down glucose metabolism. So this inhibition of glucose and carbohydrate metabolism by fats and ketones is something that's very, very well understood in the literature. And it's actually borne out really nicely by the data in athletes, where you see that even at high intensities of exercise that would normally be producing lactate and burning glycogen, ketones are slowing down carbohydrate metabolism.
Yep.
So even if you've got high glucose, you're not going to be forcing that into the mitochondria and forcing the mitochondria to burn that with a drink of human ketone.
So just to wrap up this little topic here. I think the body is quite smart, if you will, to maintain homeostatic function, right? They're not it's not crazy enough to be we have a ton of substrate, let's blow out our mitochondria or something.
There's a lot of places and steps that metabolism is regulated. It's regulated at uptake in release into the blood, uptake into the cell, uptake into the mitochondria, and then negative feedback and feed forward at all of the different enzymes that are going on. So there's a lot of checks and balances to make sure that we're not overstuffing things into the mitochondria.
I'll answer some quick questions before diving into some of the deeper questions here. So Adam Brittain asks, are you planning on launching the supplement in the UK anytime soon?
Oh, hi Adam. Is it mine?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Adam, it's a food, not a supplement. Let's be precise with our nomenclature. That it actually matters for different regulatory bodies. This is a food stuff, not a supplement. And yes, we hope to do so. We're focused on the U.S. market today, but we have so much interest from around the world. I think our team's been inundated with requests from all over. So we'll be taking all of your requests and prioritizing. Send us a note and register interest, and then we'll be prioritizing your
on our FAQ, we also recommend some third-party forwarding services that you can look into if you're interested.
So if you're especially motivated, you can look at services like that.
Fernando Cornejo asks, I heard about a similar product called Ketone. What is the difference between?
Cool, Fernando, great question. So, long story short, Ketone-Aid is I guess there's some legal ramifications that are perhaps a little bit technical to talk on a live stream here. But in short, Ketone-Aid should not be doing what they're doing in terms of the IP, the licenses. They're essentially stealing the work of Professor Clark, Professor Richard Veitch, NIH Oxford. So stay away. We'll put it at that. Let's see. What else do we have going on here? Jeff Clements asks, I've tried other ketone esters and the taste is ... not great. How's humans?
Well, I mean,
I'll say this. I'm actually curious, again, in terms of the availability of ketone esters, this is the first commercially available ketone ester, so it'd be, unless you've been trying some crazy research chemicals or something, you probably haven't tried a ketone ester. There are other ketone compounds like ketone salts that are sometimes conflated with ketone esters. So let's be precise there. I mean, ketones are a kind of a funky compound, but I think in terms of human ketone, we think it's admittedly a little bit funky. But I don't think it's unpalatable. Brianna had a drink. Do you have any GI distress?
No, I'm fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is funky, but I think if we're talking about a fourth macronutrient, the way I think about it is that if you just had protein for the first time, it'd be kind of crazy. My hope is that just like energy drinks were kind of funky when they're first introduced. My sense is that perhaps ketones will have a kind of a funky taste as they're first introduced, but as it becomes more adapted into our palates, it's not. Yeah. It's just something that's interesting.
At the end of the day, it's bitter, but it's absolutely palatable. It's fine. It's especially for an athlete looking to get that extra little bit of performance. It's I've taken beet shots that taste worse, and drunk 2 liters of bicarb, and that's definitely worse.
Yeah.
You do awful things as an athlete trying to get ahead.
Cool. There's a lot of questions coming in here. I've been doing a keto diet. So who is this? This is also Jeff Clements. So I'll follow up and say that I've been doing a keto diet for months and love it. Is there a good time to take human ketone right before workout, during workout? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, this is great for people on a keto diet who want to fuel their workouts, especially a longer endurance workout, or people who are looking for maybe a stimulant-free, sugar-free energy source that's not a fat bomb. I don't know all that much, but I know that people who advocate the keto diet are starting to really try and steer people away from doing fat bombs because of health reasons. So I mean, this could be a great alternative to that, to give you some energy during the day or before a workout or after a workout to boost your ketone levels and help you get the most out of yourself.
Yeah, awesome. Is human ketone good for summer returning exercise? Needing that extra something. Rochelle Cervantes.
Say that again.
Is human ketone good for someone returning to exercise? needing that extra something?
Yeah, I mean, I think this would be really interesting. So there's a lot of emerging research around giving ketones and their anti-inflammatory and antioxidant kind of properties. And I know that as you start to return to exercise, you get very sore, you get very tired, you get very stiff, your immune system might be compromised. So personally, if I had access to human ketone when I was training, I'd have used it to support intense periods of training. And I think someone returning to training would see a similar benefit, helping themselves ramp back up into full training.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think just me subjectively, not as an elite athlete, when I use it for my workouts, you just have an extra little fuel bin. I mean, it just, especially feel it when you're pushing into longer, cardio sessions or more intense workouts. You just feel like getting a little bit extra something there. So, I think it's super hard to improve performance on elite athletes. I think, this is me speculating. I imagine that for less elite athletes like myself, I think I get a bigger gain just because I'm just less consistent of a performer.
I think at the end of the day, what we're providing is another tool that people can consider and use it around their training and nutrition strategies now. So I mean, if you were returning to training after a period of injury, you would be carefully ramping up your training, but also paying attention to make sure that you were fueling enough and maybe taking some vitamins and minerals to stop yourself getting sick. And human ketone is a great extra thing that you have available that could help support yourself through difficult or increases in your training.
Yeah. Todd Selby asks, is it safe for someone taking metformin glucophage? Well, I think in general, when you're talking about medicines, please consult your doctor. We do not, and not frankly unqualified to give you, personalized medical advice or, period. But what I will say is that this is a food, so again, consult your doctor and exactly how you're incorporating a novel food into your diet. Some other questions. These are trickling in.
Friend Vallejo asks,
Can you just paste that into the message so I can just kind of read off and triage here. Well, I like another question from Stan Ho. Can we mix the esters with MCT oil or powder?
This is actually a great question, and it's actually something that I tried out on the whole human team back in February.
Yeah.
So I received a little bit of extra funding to look at ways to formulate delta G, the ketone ester inside human ketone, a little bit differently. And so one of the ideas I had naturally was to mix it with MCTs and see if we could make the ketone levels be elevated for a longer period of time. And it actually worked pretty well. It kept people over 1 millimole for, I think it was it 6 hours or was it 9 hours?
That we did a study, is it?
It was all day, wasn't it? The people came in first thing in the office and had 1 drink of human ketone as well as a tablespoon of MCT. And those people that tolerated the MCT at that dose had high ketone levels for the rest of the day and were in quite deep ketosis for the rest of the day. Yeah. However, some members of the office, two of the team, had pretty bad GI issues after the MCT. So if you're using MCT and you're habituated to it and you can tolerate it, then this is definitely something that you can use alongside MCT, because human ketone will give you a rapid high level, and then over 3 to 4 hours, 3 to 6 hours, depending on if you exercise, you'll sort of tail off. And the MCTs are much slower release, so it'll keep your ketone levels higher for longer. Yeah.
My comments there is that MCT oils, as we all know, cause GI distress if you're taking too much.
And there's a lot of calories.
Huh?
There's a lot of calories.
Yeah, there's calorie concern, fat concern. Again, there's open discussion on how much fat. I think we're probably on the overweighted side of demonizing fat, but that's still a lot of fat calories. My sense is that, if you have a direct form of ketones, why do you need to take a form of fat that less than 10% converts to ketones anyways? But I think different use cases and different uses for different cups of tea. Let's continue on here. Let's see. So Krish Karana asks, if you take this drink, hence increasing your ketone levels, how long does the effect last? Does this drink provide the same benefits as going into a deep state of ketosis in an old-fashioned way, i.e. high-fat, low-carb diet, or fasting? I'm going to add that last part to you. I mean, some of this is just straight facts here, then I can just handle them real quickly. You'll see when we measure Brianna's blood ketones and glucose quickly that, you'll start being able to measure ketones very quickly, within minutes. And typically, depending on your exertion, this effect will last up to 4 to 6 hours. If you're doing intense exercise, you'll be burning those ketones more quickly, so it'll be a little bit shorter. Does this drink provide the same benefits as going to a deep state of ketosis the old-fashioned way? And this is exactly what Brianna was talking about earlier. Endogenous ketosis versus exogenous ketosis. The way I think about it is that clearly there's two different mechanisms, but they share one of the same endpoints, that is elevated blood ketone levels. This is actually an open area of research, but my understanding, my thinking, my theory, my hypothesis is that BHB itself is a signaling metabolite. That's actually well understood. In it itself signals a lot of effects one can ascribe to fasting or eating a ketogenic diet. But I would not claim that it does everything that the endogenous ketosis does. So I think to summarize, if we're letting you answer, is that human ketone perhaps I think covers a subset of the benefits of fasting or ketogenic diet.
So I think that when a lot of people think about the ketogenic diet, they associate it with fat burning and weight loss, and then also maybe as a treatment for metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance. Those are kind of upstream things of producing ketone bodies. So in order to help treat insulin resistance, it's very helpful and really beneficial, and we would definitely recommend reducing your dietary carbohydrate intake, because that's definitely going to improve your blood glucose control and help you manage your metabolic syndrome. Then equally, consuming a ketogenic diet that's high in fat, and one of the things is that it's meant to help you burn your fat. And as we've kind of discussed, exogenous ketones don't come from burned fat. So if you're measuring ketones in your blood from fasting or being on the diet, those have come from your fat, and that is likely to be helping you with fat loss. But taking ketones from the drink, it's actually just telling your cells to stop burning, releasing fat. So there's two things there, maybe two main benefits that people are kind of focused on with the ketogenic diet: weight loss, fat burning, and insulin resistance, that we don't think you're going to get from taking ketones in the drink.
I'm going to take a question from my good friend Nagib Suiris. He asks, will human ketone help you from getting your, I'll censor from ass beaten, or I didn't censor myself, my butt beaten. So we're doing a little bit of a charity box match. Coming for you. Raven Martinez asks, any cognitive effects?
Can I say here, I actually feel like pretty good. Like, it's been a while since I took the drink, and I feel pretty good.
Yeah, so I can say subjectively, it's a cool subjective feeling. So if you've done longer fasts and have elevated ketone levels, you start feeling that sharpness, that monk-like focus in a deeper state of fasting. And you get that really quickly in a drink form. And it's like, but you don't feel the downside of the fasting, because like when you're fasting, you have very, very low glucose. And you have no glucose reserve. So I think it's like a very cool, focused, sharp, in the moment feeling.
But I should speak about some science here.
Yes.
So we've actually done some animal studies looking at cognitive function with ketone ester that's inside human ketone, and we gave it to rats and made them do maze solving. The rats that had human ketone were solving the maze at 1/3 quicker than the rats on the normal standard Western diet. So there's definitely some animal evidence for effects, and then also There's some data that we've got and not published yet where we've looked at human ketone during exercise and seen some interesting cognitive effects. And then again, going forwards, it's definitely an active area of research for us to carry on looking at.
We'll put it at that. I mean, that's definitely an exciting area for me personally, going back to our nootropic roots.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's just really difficult to measure cognition.
Yeah, I mean, but working on it, right? Working on it. Let's see here. Keto Advocate asks, can human ketone improve non-aerobic athletic performance? And this is a good question. It's a nuanced question. I know we've had a lot of discussion about it. So in terms of increasing non-aerobic max performance, there's no reason why we would expect, or anaerobic performance, there's no reason why we expect ketones themselves to boost anaerobic performance. But I think when you're looking at the cognitive effects and overall effects of a game with mixed bursts of aerobic and anaerobic exercise, we hypothesize that the lactate reduction, the extra fuel source, may be able to provide performance gains over the extent of the game.
Yes.
And then from a recovery perspective, we think that with the benefits of glycogen resynthesis and muscle protein resynthesis, one could recover faster from very anaerobic exercise. So basically, in short, I don't think that this is necessarily going to increase your max rep of squats or bench, etc. But maybe you have some sort of cognitive effect that is enabling you to push harder, and then but that's speculative. But I would be confident saying that from a recovery perspective, if you're taking this with your standard protein carbohydrate shake after a workout, I'd expect you to recover faster to train again harder tomorrow.
And one thing I'd kind of like to highlight is that I think there are going to be several research studies done, and not all of the effects are going to agree. So I know that we've seen in Oxford VO2 max is unchanged with ketone esters, and I know that a lot of people speculate that taking ketones might inhibit glycolytic kind of exercise. But actually, I think my advice to people going forward would be to wait for more research to be done, and then look at the sum and the totality of the research and different sports use cases, rather than just fixating on one.
Yeah, I mean, just going into one question that we've gotten asked a lot is, what do you think about the Louise Burke study published in Frontiers in Physiology, studying the ketone diester and acetoacetate diester decreasing performance in cyclists? And I think it's important because it's a lot of research that's being published now, and we don't want to get everything confused. So what I want to make clear for folks referencing, they might have seen that article being written up in the New York Times, etc., is that what was studied in Australia was an acetoacetate diester, which is a very, very different compound than what we have in human ketone, which is a D-beta hydroxybutyrate monoester. So from a baseline, just what is even being studied, very, very different pharmacokinetics, very, very different mechanisms of action. Just to give you a quick highlight of how different it is, the peak levels of beta hydroxybutyrate in the Australian study, the Burke study, was just breaking 1 millimole ketones, whereas in the peak beta hydroxybutyrate levels for the cyclist study done in Oxford and also on rowers, the peak levels are breaking through 3 millimolar. So people that know what these different numbers mean will quickly understand that that's a big damn difference in terms of how much ketones are being filled in.
But as an athlete reflecting on the study, one of the biggest issues was that ester was not very well tolerated.
Yeah.
And I've taken things before, I worked out in rowing, and if they make you feel rubbish, then you just don't perform as well. Yeah. And they had quite a lot of issues.
I don't want to preempt too much of. I know that Dr. Brianna Stubbs is writing a formal response because actually in that same journal that published the Louise Burke study, Frontiers in, also literally 1 or 2 articles before that or after that was your own study on exogenous ketone metabolism in humans. So we've actually also had Professor Dominic D'Agostino come in this past weekend. We had a little chat around the study itself because he, has a lot of experience working with acetotate, with acetoacetate diester. So he had some interesting color around whether the samples were stored properly before giving to athletes, because acetoacetate diester, that compound is relatively fragile, breaks down, and so there were apparently wasn't too much of a control in actually seeing what it was the active compound even there before giving it to these athletes. So again, very subtle details. You're writing a formal response that will be published in the journal. But I think it is important, for just us educating the world on exogenous ketones, and this being a very, very exciting time in this field of research. They just make it clear that, let's talk about apples to apples, oranges to oranges, and not get everything conflated into like this whole war against like keto is good, keto is bad. That's not the purpose. It's like, let's actually talk about the science and the data and really compare apples to apple.
And I think this brings us on nicely to a question that we've been asked quite often before, which is, how is this different to ketone salt products that are out there?
Yes.
So I mean, like,
someone actually I saw it asked, like, how is it different from a D only salt, ketone salt?
So I mean, in the again apples to apples kind of theme. So ketone esters contain BHB bound to like a ketone precursor. And salts contain BHB bound to minerals such as sodium or potassium or calcium. And as such, they have very different uptake rates, and they elevate ketone levels to quite different levels. If you were to give a pure D salt, I mean, not many of them exist commercially available right now, but the problem with that is that you still have quite high sodium and potassium levels. And I hear a lot of people saying that if you're on the keto diet, you need to be supplementing with salts anyway, but that's still, if you were consuming 2 to 3 of ketone salt drinks a day, that would still be massively exceeding your RDA if you're consuming a normal diet as well of these ions. And also I'd like to say that up until now, I think all the science suggests that after the initial period of keto adaptation, the loss of ions in the urine is less anyway, so you don't need to, once you've got through the adaptation period, there's a bit less of a need to be continuously supplementing with salt.
I mean, I think just also just in terms of the metrics, let's just be very clear. This is your Frontiers paper. You just showed that ketone ester, in human ketone, is just essentially 5 times more potent than ketone salts.
But I didn't study a D-only salt. So it'd be interesting to see, and in the paper I do say it would be interesting to compare the kinetics of the D-only salt.
Yeah, so I think, again, exactly, so like I think with a lot of salt you get to like 0.5 millimolar, and then let's actually do your finger prick. I mean, it's about 45 minutes in, right? Right, Sil?
Yeah.
You want to prep that. We'll see with Brianna. You get so basically a ketone cell will give you a bump of 0.3, 0.5, and you'll see with human ketone you get a bump from 3 to 5. So literally 10x more ketones delivered. So it's just strictly more powerful ketone compound. And then I think one thing that I want to just mention there before let's see Brianna's result here is that a lot of the GI distress associated with ketone compounds is associated with salts, right? With so much salt load, it kind of disrupts the gut. With the human ketone, there's no GI distress, there's no salt there. Anyways, without further ado, let's actually just measure how human ketone has changed your glucose and ketone levels.
Will the camera be able to see it?
Ooh, wow. Actually, I've never seen the ketones this high before. So Brianna went to 7.1 millimole. No wonder you're feeling like on fire. And then your blood sugar went down to 79 milligrams per deciliter. So just to give you a summary here. Brianna, about 45 minutes ago, started this live stream at 0.6 millimole ketones. She had a hard workout this morning, eats relatively low carb. That went from 0.6 to 7.1. That's the biggest jump I've ever seen, actually. That's pretty
I think I was a little bit worried when my levels were 0.6 to start with. It wasn't going to go up very much.
Yeah, no.
I should feel like I should go for a run or something now.
Yeah, and then her glucose went from 88 milligrams per deciliter to 79. So very interesting effect. So we dropped your blood sugar a little over 10% actually, and your ketones I mean, this is me fasting for 10 days. I know when I fasted for 7 days, I hit 5.4 level, and that's when I peaked out and stopped fasting. So your ketone levels are equivalent to me fasting for probably 10 days. I just want to I don't know if this picks up on the camera, but I think these are just like pretty crazy numbers. Is this picking up? You guys can see it. And of course, these are standard Precision Extra glucose ketone meters. You can just pick off on Amazon. So no crazy camera magic here. This is real N=1 live demo with Brianna here with human ketone. Yeah, that's just cool. I think, as a biohacker, as someone that's looked at almost every single technology innovation in the space of performance, there's just nothing that I know of, that I've seen, that I've experienced, that actually manipulates objective numbers so dramatically, so quickly. And please prove me wrong, but I think that's like the awesomeness of this technology, of this product. I don't think we need to say anything more. Just seeing this believing here. Should we get back into more questions here? What was that? Oh, let's do a giveaway. So, yes. So as Zil nicely reminded me, that part of thanking you guys for joining and asking these wonderful questions is a live giveaway. So we're giving away a 3-pack of human ketone for folks that have asked your great questions. So Zil's going to do a digital lottery. And in the meantime, when he's making that happen and collecting all the questions, we'll be playing a clip from my conversation with Professor Dom D'Agostino, who, as some of you may know, is a leading ketone researcher from USF, published a lot of studies on ketones. So take a quick clip on our conversation, and we'll get back to you with the winner of the giveaway.
So Dom, with the launch of human ketone, it'll be the first time there will be a commercially available ketone ester drink that everyone can purchase and use. I know you've studied ketone esters in your research. What do you think the implications are going to be for athletes, for everyday folks that are trying to use ketone esters? What do you think that unlocks?
Well, I think it's an exciting experiment because we haven't studied these in the capacity. We know that they have effects on metabolism that have broad-ranging implications for a number of therapeutic diseases, and which I study mostly. And I know from using it personally and this communicating with quite a few people who are using ketone salt products, are sending me their blood work, telling me their benefits, whether it be seizures, performance, in the field, diving, being in hypoxia, climbing, things like that. So people are already getting the benefits of it. So the introduction to this powerful ketone ester into the market, I think, really can bring about, you're bringing a technology to people that has wide-ranging implications for human health, potentially disease, and also human performance. So that's really interesting to me. And as a scientist, I am really excited to do more research. Most of what we have done have been in animal models, and I'm really excited to move our research more into human clinical trials and human performance trials. So maybe a commercially available supplement will allow us to
unlock
do that
door,
and expedite that process. So.
Very cool.
All right, hope you enjoyed that quick clip. You can find that full video on our YouTube channel, I believe, and also probably on Facebook. It's a great conversation. I think we're excited to work with all the different thought leaders in the world of ketone research. I mean, I think we really see this as the beginning of just a new space of research, honestly, right? So we'll have different perspectives in our podcast moving forward as well. So Zil has let me know that he has lottery selected a winner here, and the lucky winner of our 3-pack giveaway is Nick Anderson. Congratulations. Zil will be reaching out and getting your details. So So be ready to get a nice welcome email to getting your first little sample of human ketone. But there are, I believe, one more giveaway that we're doing as part of this launch celebration week. We have a Thunderclap campaign, which basically coordinates all the social media for people that sign up and launches a message all at the same time, hopefully to get the word out in a magnified way. So I believe the link is on your screen. Just sign up and register for the Thunderclap, and one of our Thunderclap participants will also win another 3-pack of human ketone. So appreciate all of the support with the launch so far. I think the response has been phenomenal. The pre-sales line has blown my mind. So.
And we've also had some really good inbounds from other sports athletes and sports teams.
Yeah.
So we're really excited for what's to come.
Yeah, so I mean, we don't have time to answer a ton of your different questions. I just see a funny question from a friend, Vallejo, who asked, will this be a publicly traded company? Currently, we're not a publicly traded company, but we hope to be so in the near future, and you have the baked-in ticker symbol, $HVMN, ready to go. So we're claiming that ticker. So when we're ready, I'll let you know when we're public, so you can get a bit of the upside of the innovation of human performance. I think we actually have to wrap up here, unfortunately. So please continue with the questions. We might do another Q&A session or just answer them remotely in our FAQ. What is our FAQ link? If you just go to human.com, you can actually find an FAQ where my team has put together a lot of these questions in a nicely formatted way online.
And if you want some bedtime reading, I've spent the last few weeks kind of compiling a lot of the research around the ketogenic diet and exogenous ketones and ketosis generally, and that's being published in sort of library section of the Human website too.
So just go to our help section of the website, help.human.com. You can find the center around human ketone. And again, it's really good information. We put a lot of effort in just being very, very precise on all the different questions. Thank you so much for joining this live stream. I had a lot of fun answering these questions.
I feel great. I've won out of this exchange.
Yeah.
So. It's great to take all of your questions, and we look forward to kind of continuing to serve you guys and educate you and be part of the movement around ketones going forward.
Absolutely. Not much more to be added there. Thank you so much. See you guys next time.
Peace.
Take care.